Okay, Eric, thank you so much for that intro. I appreciate that. And folks, you are in for a treat. Today, we're going to be talking with Austin Morse. Austin came through training about a year ago, and he has a great story to tell. So I'm going to ask him to turn on his webcam and unmute himself, and let's get with it, Morse. I mean, Austin. I guess I can call you by your last name, can I?
Call me whatever you like.
You know, people call me Philip all the time. They'll see my last name and they'll say, "Oh, hey, Philip." So,
Well,
Austin, thank you for taking time. I know you're in right in the middle of getting your first client up and running, and so I'm going to ask you some details about that. But I just wanted to let people know that this is a live interview with a real licensee who's gone through what they're going through. Hopefully, some of you are doing your due diligence on us as a company and this opportunity. And so I'm going to be asking Austin some questions right to begin with, but I want all of you to go back to that question box and, and think about it this way. Think about it as if Austin was right here in front of you with me, you would be asking him questions. So the questions that we want today on this webinar are questions directed to Austin about his business and just about anything. Just don't ask him, how much money he has in his bank account. Is that okay, Austin?
well, we can talk about that at another time, right?
We never have enough, do we? All right, well, Austin, let's start with your story. Would you kind of give us some background about you? What you filled out in your questionnaire for us?
Absolutely.
Just give us a little bit about you, yourself, and, let's see if you're a real person.
Yeah, live and real, present and accounted for. So I'm originally from Montana. I now live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm an Army veteran, and I've had background in quite a few different professions. But nonetheless, my most recent is at a college in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I was on the executive team and did a little bit of HR, compliance, accreditation for the college, and so it was kept me very busy and was very intense. And so ultimately, my goal was to find a profession and an organization like ABS where I could, eventually walk away from the college and turn this into the second part of my career. And I hope to do this for the next 30 years or so until I retire. But so I did recently leave the college, and I'm doing this full time as of today, actually. What really,
Wow.
excuse me, but what the turning point for me is that this summer I got my first client, and I signed on a mental health therapist out of the Grand Rapids area, and so I've been working with her, getting her all lined out through Next Gen Health Fusion. And it's been an incredible process, and we're hitting the ground running. In fact, last would have been Monday, the 10th of September, I submitted my first claims for her, and I was really impressed because I submitted those claims on September 10th. Blue Cross Blue Shield had received them and processed them by September 14th. And as of yesterday, the 18th of September, she's already received a direct deposit into her checking account and is being paid for those claims that I submitted. So I'm really pleased.
Less than 10 days.
Yeah, right. I mean, it went through really quick. And the beauty of it, and trust me, I researched this entire system thoroughly. That's what I'm a compliance person, HR. And so I really wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting into, and everything that I was told from the very beginning, starting with Adam Phillips back in July of 2017, all the way through the training in September of last year, all the way through now with the webinars and the support team from ABS has all come to fruition. And it's really been an amazing process. It's hard work. And you got to dig in, you got to study. The training initially for that week, it prepares you well, but as you do tell all of us that that's just the beginning. You got to continue to do ongoing education and professional development. But ultimately, I can see this is already starting to pay off, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, people say, how in the world do you get somebody trained in this business, from scratch, basically, most people, in 5 days? And I tell them, well, it's just it's a mini MBA, in this industry, but it's condensed down to so that you can get started and get your first client and get rolling. And you're going to continue learning. It's a changing industry, and that's why it's important to be a part of, our network, because we keep you up on stuff, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those webinars are priceless. I refer to them and watch them over and over again. And then, of course, the materials that you guys provided during the week of training, I have it sitting right there on my desk, and I refer back to it often, just because I don't have a medical background, so I was trying to learn the terminology and all that. But ultimately, the training and the information that you guys provided gave me the confidence that I could actually do this and move forward and turn this into a real and successful business. Obviously, I'm just now getting rolling with the clients, but I can see that it's going to work, and it is working, and it's going to work. It's going to get even better, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had a question already come in here from Trinicia. She says, why ABS? All the companies that are out there, why ABS?
Yeah, well, so I looked at multiple companies. First of all, I liked the ABS website and the information that was on there, and so that was big for me. The key, and I'll tell you what, when I talked to Adam Phillips last summer, I asked him a bunch of questions, and one of the things that really convinced me that this was legitimate was the fact that I asked him for references, and without hesitation, he told me he gave me about 3 or 4 different people throughout the Midwest, and I only ended up calling one. I can't remember which one I called, but I was convinced right there because I mean he didn't even hesitate. He gave me references, and they're all people who have gone through this process and were successful at it. And so there was no doubt in my mind. My only question is whether or not I could do it. And but going to the training, left me no doubt that the support, the education, the information that's provided is more than efficient to go ahead and move forward and take this on as a career.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it's a big decision. I mean, let's face it, it's a low investment compared to a lot of opportunities and franchises that are out there, but it's still a chunk of change to make a decision on something that you know nothing about, right? So let's talk about that, Austin. You said you didn't have any medical background at all. What caused you then to even look at this industry?
Yeah, well, so I do have some background working in mental health. I was a director of group homes out in Montana. However, overall, no real experience in the medical field. So for me, what it was important is that I would be a licensee and not a franchise. That was important. But I guess for me, I appreciated the fact that there wasn't a lot of overhead. Basically, if I had a computer connection, internet, I would have some flexibility. I could go down and work basically at any location I wanted to. And so that was really important for me. But ultimately, just looking at the fact that obviously healthcare, medical is always going to be important. That's not going to change at all. And then, of course, everything's going digital. And so I figured between the two of them, how can you go wrong in the long term?
That's a good point. The computer industry and all that's involved in the technology that we have, along with healthcare, which is 1/5 of the entire economy in the United States, I think it has a future. I think
Yeah,
there'll always be a future.
yeah, absolutely. So
I tell
that
people, as long as there's human beings that get sick and they go to a doctor, somebody has to bill somebody for the doctor to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to cut back on that, and it's inevitable. People get sick, and and this is a great opportunity to help these practices, help them stay private, and help them organize, streamline, and increase their cash flow, and look for the leaks in their cash flow pipeline, and really help them out. And I can tell you just from my experience already that with the therapist that I'm working working with, she is extremely grateful because she doesn't want to deal with any of this. She doesn't want to, she just wants to do the therapy, and she wants to
Right.
hand it over to me, and I'll take care of it. I said, not a problem. Let's get this ball rolling. And she is extremely happy.
I think you'll find that's true with just about every doctor out there. They're in private practice because they really want to help people one on one to get well. And they want to focus on that, but they've got two sides to their business, right? They got the practice of medicine, and then they got the practice of running a business. And they weren't taught to run a business. And so those doctors who do the billing in-house with their own staff and their own software, they just don't know, do they? They just don't understand that it could be cheaper and take all of that burden off of their staff to let their staff focus on, helping the doctor see the patients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she right from the get-go, she said, I'm intimidated by it. I don't like dealing with insurance companies. I just want to give it all to you. You figure it out. And so, yeah, she handed me basically the keys. And the good thing was with our initial appointment, we were able to establish a rapport and a level of trust, as it turned out. And I didn't know her at all. She found me through the free Google site, and she called me up, and we met at a coffee shop, and we talked for a bit, and I did the practice analysis, and she signed the agreement, and we've been moving forward ever since.
So you just answered, I think, one of the questions coming in here from John is, how did you get your first client? So basically, they found you.
They
She
did.
did.
Well,
Yeah.
and so what happened was, Cynthia Anderson, the trainer there, in fact, and of course she's amazing, does a nice job. Um, she made a point of making sure that you get connected with free advertising as much as is possible, and so I got connected with, Google and Yellow Pages and all of that stuff, and so I'm on all of those. In fact, I'm monitoring the traffic on my website. One of the things that was important to her, and she told me this, was um, the website that I set up through ABS. She said the way it was laid out and everything was explained very well with the information, and so that was really important because she had looked up numerous billing providers, and it was the website that was the initial prompt for her to give me a call, followed up by the meeting that we had after that.
Oh, you're talking about the therapist. Yeah, good.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you mentioned Cynthia, and going back to the training, it's good to hear from somebody who's actually been through what you've been through already and has built a very successful business, hasn't she?
Yeah, and she was able to answer all of our questions. We had we were a tough group in the sense that we wanted to know really truly what we were getting into, and she is a professional. She handled it very well. The entire setup was, in fact, I believe I put that it was. I've been to a lot of training sessions, through the colleges and through mental health and all of that, and that was one of the most well-run training sessions that I have been a part of. And with her, doing this for, starting about 10 years ago and building her business up to what it is now is very impressive. And she's been there, done that. And so, you can take it to the bank that she knows what she's talking about, and she's going to give you great information.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, my staff and myself, we could teach the material, but it would not be the same. You need to hear from somebody who's actually out there in the field doing it every day. She comes down here for a week, and as you know, she has, I don't know if she told you, but she's got 11 people that work for her now. So she's got plenty of staff to, do the billing for the doctors that she has, and focus on this. So that's just a thing I've done since the very beginning. I taught a few classes, and then as soon as I had somebody that really had gotten their business up and running and had a handful of clients, I said, do you think you could teach this class? And they started teaching it. So since then, I've always had licensee instructors. Now, you did mention the licensee thing, that you like that better than being a franchisee. Do you know what the differences are? What's the primary reasons why you would rather not be a franchisor,
Well,
franchisee? I mean,
and from what I understand, franchise, you have to continue to pay in order to use that brand, that label. And
Yeah,
with
royalties, monthly royalties. Yeah, it's based on your gross revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And with ABS, you have your one-time fee, and after that, you don't have to pay any more, obviously. And of course, you get access to all the resources. And as I noted, I've called the support department at ABS probably 5 to 10 times and emailed them more than that, and they have been extremely helpful. And so the great thing is I've paid off my what I ended up doing is I got 2 credit cards. I put the cost of the ABS training on 2 0% credit cards. I paid it off, and so that's done and gone. It's a tax write-off. I have my accountants, and of course, they're taking care of all that. But ultimately, I'm on my own now in the sense that it's my own business and I don't have to continue to pay into ABS, yet I have the lifelong support with ABS as a licensee. And so it's the perfect scenario for me, and that's why I chose it.
Let's see, Austin, thank you for that. But I do have some other questions here. Here's an interesting one from Mary, Mary Carmen. Hope I'm saying that right. She says, Austin, from what you say, you took the course a year ago and you only started a few weeks ago. Does this mean it took you a whole year to get started?
No, let me clarify. So I was working at the college full time. I was vice president of institutional affairs, which is a lot of work. And so I was just doing this for a couple hours a night in the evenings. And so I've been working through this entire year. Well, yesterday was my first, or yesterday was my last day at the college, and so now I'm doing this full time. So I didn't really hit it hard at initially. What I decided, because I was working at the college, what I decided is that I would learn as much as I could, slowly work my way into it, working a couple hours a night, working some weekends here and there, and just getting everything established. And then, but I will say this: once I put myself out there, it was last spring. It was probably, in fact, it was last April is when I really started putting myself out there on the social media, websites, all of that sort of stuff. It was the end of May, so we're talking. It was only 2 months after I really put myself out there that I was already getting calls and emails asking about my services.
Yeah. And we find that's typical that people who have a full-time job, of course, obviously they can't put the time in that somebody could, that's working at full time like you are now. So they have to just work it in and get it started slowly, knowing that, hey, this business is going to be around no matter what. It'll always be here. I've had one guy that had something come up with his, well, he got a divorce. It's a long story, but anyway, it was personal stuff. And he put the thing on the shelf for 2 years. Then 2 years later, he decided, you know what? I've got a business. I think I'll just crank it up. He called us up, said, what can I do to get back up to speed? Our support is lifetime support. So we got him up to speed, and he had his first client there in a couple of months. Yeah, so that's typical. Okay, well, then let's move on here to another one here. This is somebody, they didn't put their name in, but they said basically the same thing. If I heard Austin right, did he get his first client just this month or back in August or?
Well, I signed my client back in June.
Oh, in
Um,
June. Okay.
yeah, and we basically throughout the summer I was working with her and getting the paperwork, getting her credentialed, and things.
Okay, she wasn't credentialed, yeah. Yeah, so you said you really got out there full time in like in May, and then you signed her in June. So it really wasn't within probably 30 or 60 days.
Yeah, it was about 60 days. I signed her right at the beginning of June, and yeah, so once I really put myself out there, it didn't take very long at all.
Let's see, Trinicia says something about have you been doing your marketing full time uh, for you getting your first client in the year mark? We kind of answered that, I think, by what we just said, that it wasn't, you weren't marketing full time, obviously. Austin, you mentioned earlier that you gave notice to your company a long way back then. Is that right? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I have a great working relationship with my supervisor, the president of the college, and she knew that I wanted to get out on my own and be self-employed. And I have that entrepreneurial bug, if you will. And so we worked, hand in hand. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I left the college at a good place. And as soon as I felt comfortable leaving them in a good spot, then it was time for me to check out and do this full time, which it was yesterday. So yesterday was my last day.
That is, I didn't know that. I mean, when we set this up a week or so ago, I didn't realize that you were cutting it off and going full time. Congratulations. Hey, it's scary, I know, but as you can see already, the system works. Getting somebody up to speed is no big deal, and the money will start flowing. It's just a matter, of getting those claims going. And of course, even if a client is not just a huge volume, of claims, they're all good references, and the referrals will come.
Absolutely, and she's already told me she's been giving my name out left and right, and of course she works with 5 other therapists in that same building. So I fully anticipate this turning into many more clients. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Now, here's a question from Lynn. She says, did your customer use any billing system before switching to you?
Yes. Well, so she had another medical biller. She ended up letting that person go. That person did not use the ABS system.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the details there. I just know that she wasn't happy and she wanted a new, billing company, and
Yeah.
I was glad to help her out with that.
Yeah, and so like her, a lot of doctors will get unhappy with whatever their situation is, whether they're outsourcing and the outsourcing company is not providing the reporting, or the money's not coming in like it should, or if they're using their own staff. If they're unhappy, they will be looking. They may not tell anybody, of course, until they found the person to replace them, but they will continue out there looking. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I'll just give you a small insight without giving up too much information. She had claims or patients that she saw in January and February. When she contacted me at the end of May, early June, she still hadn't been paid yet. So
Wow.
I could help her out with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's important that they, and so by meeting with her at a coffee shop, basically you just built the trust there, I'm sure, just talking with her. And did you do the practice analysis there?
I did. I did do it there. No, correction. I think what I did is I met with her, and then the following week I met with her at her practice and did the practice analysis. Now there wasn't a whole lot to that, just because at that point she only has less than 10 clients, but at the same time, the practice analysis form that ABS gives you, just walks you right through it, and you're able to get the necessary information. And based on that, I was able to make a deal with her, and she signed the contract, and it's worked out really well.
That's great. Now, can you kind of explain to people in general what this practice analysis is all about?
Yeah, so the practice analysis, which ABS does a nice job of going through that during the training, and of course it's on their support system, so you can download them at any time. What I did do is I customized mine and put my logo on top, but ultimately it goes through and it just helps you get the pulse on their business, the number of clients that they have, how they pay, the systems that they're currently using as far as billing. And it just does a thorough walkthrough, so that way you get an idea of what that practice is all about, and you get a baseline of where they're at in their business, and from there you're able to take that information and give them an honest assessment of their practice, and then of course write up a contract and make them an offer to do business with them after that. Oh, I think we lost audio there.
Patrick, are you there?
I'm there.
Okay.
Lynn says, how do you let your customers trust you if you don't have medical coding background?
Well, it's a combination of things. I mean, first of all, ABS, with the system that they set you up with, as I noted, I used the ABS website system that they provide, and obviously they give you the options of personalizing it. So it comes across as very professional because it is, for one. So the website was helpful. That helped me get to the appointment, with the help of Google search, obviously. The next thing is, you got to do your part. You got to do your homework. You got to study the materials that they give you. And I walked in there. I may have not at that point been a medical professional as far as billing, in the sense where I haven't had 20 years of experience, but I knew the information that ABS had given me, and I studied it a lot, and I went in there with confidence, knowing that the system worked, just because, like I said, I've seen other people that have done it, and it worked, and she was willing to move forward.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a positioning thing, right? You position yourself as a part of the nation's largest network of certified medical revenue managers. You give out a book. Did you get those personalized books with your
Yeah,
name on them?
I gave her a book that first meeting,
Oh,
and
good.
so I highlighted it, of course, and she went through and read through it, and that book touched on a lot of the pain points that she was having. And so the book, the website, the information, the knowledge, the system gives you a competitive advantage. And what it comes down to is whether or not you can go in there and sit down and have a conversation with someone, and be honest with them. I told her, right off the bat, that I'm new to this, but I also reassured her that I would do whatever it took to make sure that she was taken care of, and I have, and so that's paid off.
Yeah, I had one licensee that I interviewed, Austin, that said something similar to that. He said, I just wanted to be honest and upfront with them. He said, I just put it this way. I just opened a local office as a part of the nation's largest network of medical billing companies. And see, so you're positioning yourself like, well, like a Century 21 realtor. They just opened a local office. They've never sold a home, but they have Century 21 behind them. So same thing here. And the book, of course, builds great credibility for you. That's something unique to ABS. Is I don't know of anybody out there who provides a book written by a doctor. It's the one in the middle there. Those of you looking at the screen. I wrote that with Dr. Vicki Ratner, who's a retired general surgeon, and it's a powerful book. It basically just outlines why doctors need you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I read through it. I read through the Cash Crunch, Cash to Cash Flow. I've read through a lot of your books, and so I mean, I will reiterate, it's important to make sure you do your homework and utilize the resources that are there. But if you do, it works.
Yeah, it works. We tell people our system works if you work the system. Okay, here's Jay. Says lots of medical billing companies out there. What is the greatest competitive edge the ABS system has over other medical billing companies that impresses your prospective clients?
Yeah, so I think well, for first of all, ABS is coming on 25 years as a company, and um, the nationwide network of over 1,500 licensees is really important. The key for my client, I believe, so far was the fact that the rejection rates are so low. I told her that it's less than a 2% average as far as rejection rates, and that the turnaround time, anywhere from 7 to 14 days as far as getting paid. That was a huge selling point for her. And as I just said, September 10th I submitted, and by the 18th she was paid. And so she was super impressed with the fact that we could get her money in her bank account that quickly. And I've seen it now in person myself, and I can tell you that it works.
Yeah. People find that hard to believe, doctors do, because they've been dealing with their own staff who sometimes doesn't get money back 45, 60 days later. So when they can get it in less than basically a week, they're pretty impressed by that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Lynn says, can this business work for billing from assisted living house? I guess it could anywhere you have an internet connection and a computer.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I plan on at some point doing it from spring training ball games. Obviously, being careful with HIPAA and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I plan on hitting the road, finding an internet connection, and seeing where I end up during the cold winters.
we have we have many licensees that will tell stories about working from some beach in Florida or Hawaii, even. I mean, because nowadays usually the Wi-Fi from a hotel is just right there, all connected, and gives you the ability to do that. I think this guy actually had rented a house on the beach that had Wi-Fi, so he was just out on the beach, literally with his laptop doing some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You find get a hotspot, get a secure connection, and
Yeah,
and you're good to go.
yeah. Let's see. Carter says, Austin, did you ever think about going the sales rep route while continuing to work full time at the college?
I considered it. What I did do is I did talk to some people who aren't particularly salesmen or women to say, but what I did is I told them what I was doing, and they know a lot of people, and so what I did offer them is if they do introduce me to a client and they end up using the iClaim services or the EMR, that I would give them some sort of some money, but I haven't got anything through that yet. I did consider salespeople, but I didn't end up doing it. But I know that there's plenty of people that have done that. For me, I'm not interested in having 10, 15, 20 employees. I want to keep it a little bit smaller. And plus I knew that I was transitioning from a full-time job away from the college. So who knows, I may utilize that in the future, but right now, I'm not going to utilize salespeople.
Yeah, it all depends on whether you have time. Of course, now you do have time to do it yourself, but there's a lot of folks who have done that very thing. Found somebody, you pay them a commission only based on the revenue that you get from the doctor. There's a setup fee that you charge the doctor, so you can give them a portion of that, so they could make $1,000 or whatever up front for signing the doctor, and then have a residual income on the back end. They love that once you get somebody involved in that. Yeah, we teach a whole session on that in our class as to how to do that, and many people have been successful. In fact, I had one licensee, I think it was in Florida. He never went out and did any marketing himself. He had people, somehow he ran ads or went on the internet and found these sites that have jobs offerings from people and people who want a job, and just hired salespeople in different cities all over the country going out and doing it for him. Yeah. Let's see. There's not a name here, but this person says, how did you feel after your first pay from your first client? Happy or disappointed?
Oh, I was extremely excited, mostly for them that, I was really excited that I've been working at this for a year, often, part-time, and I was just excited to see it come to fruition, and I was excited for them, and so she just got paid this month of the stuff I submitted. So in October 1st, then I will bill her based on the agreement that we signed, and I'm excited to get that. Now I will say, because I did sign her up with iClaim, and so there, we had setup fees and the initial iClaim fees or the monthly fee for iClaim. So I've been making some money already off of it. Now it's the point where I'm going to start making money off of the claims that are submitted and approved.
Yeah. Austin, do you mind sharing, since we haven't mentioned your therapist's name, what percentage did you charge her?
So I ended up charging her 7%.
Yeah. We find that's about the range, 6, 7, 8% sometimes, depending on the doctor, depending on their volume, a lot of different situations there. But yeah, so folks, that means that if he bills for this particular doctor, let's say $100,000 in a month's time, he would be billing her 7% of that, or $7,000. That's how that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we tell people you don't need but a handful of clients, if they've got some kind of volume, or maybe it takes a dozen of smaller clients. They all are great potential referral partners for you, and so you're making something. Even if you were making $500 a month, it's something. Your time that you put in is probably going to make you a whole lot more than you could make, working at McDonald's. Minimum wage. No, I have licensees who tell me that they're making $60 to $80 an hour for their time, so that'll vary. Let's see. Casey says, please explain the process and challenges of getting a doctor to sign up to your service. This one was pretty open, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the key, is not reinventing the wheel, and making sure that you study the materials and utilize the resources that are there. And if you take it from that point and you go in there and and just be honest with people. And I'm not salesy. I'm not a salesperson, as you can probably tell. I just go in there and say, call it what it is, say what it is, and present the information. And and that's what I did with this first client. And she almost right away, she hired me.
That does come across, Austin. That's one of your good points, is that you don't come across. And we tell people, you've heard it in training, we say, don't go in being salesy. They don't want to buy anything from you. What they want is to solve their cash flow problem, So I think coming across,
absolutely.
Yeah, you can come across too well, what's the word? Salesy, I guess, is the right word for that. Let's see. Mikhail says, what are the most important things needed to have success in this business, in your opinion?
Well, I think ultimately it's work ethic is important, and continuing education, knowledge. But again, it goes back to not reinventing the wheel, using the system that's in place, the system that you buy into and that you paid for, you utilize it. And in fact, I talked to a coach that I had down in Columbus, Ohio, and he said that they initially tried to reinvent the wheel a little bit in some ways, and it didn't work as well. And once they went back to the basics, to the way ABS told them to do it, they got a client just like that. And that's the only way. That's the way they do it, and it's worked out for them ever since. And they got numerous employees.
Yeah, I've had many licensees I've interviewed. We've done over 70 interviews with licensees over the years that are out there on our YouTube channel, and a lot of them say the same thing. It's like we've actually scripted it for them or something. We haven't, but it sounds like it, because they say, Patrick, I went out and I did this, I tried this and this, and then I didn't get a client, and I thought, well, maybe I should do what ABS taught me to do. We've done this for 25 years, so we kind of have it, down to a process, a system. It's a system. Just follow the system. Yeah. Let's see. Ben says, Austin, have you been able to clear the past billing issues that the doctor had in January, February?
Yeah. So what happened is eventually some of the stuff that the previous billing company had built, it finally came through at the end of May, early June, but it was too little, too late. So ultimately, when I got her signed up, I just utilized the system, and it's gone quickly. And so I think that those problems are solved. Now, one thing I will say is it's important to make sure you get a good information from the doctor or from the practice that you're working with, because it's only the information that you receive is only as good as, it only works as well as the accuracy of it. And so I really have been working with this therapist and really making sure that I get great information. In fact, I worked with her to recreate her new patient information based off of iClaim and what they require for their information. So I redesigned her new patient forms and make sure that she gets that information to me, gets me a copy of the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance cards, to really just to make sure that it minimizes any chance of errors and slowing up the process.
Yeah, we have people all the time ask about, well, how am I going to sign up a doctor that's maybe in a different state? Because if you sign up a doctor, this lady, for example, might know a doctor in California. And so that's easy to do with today's technology, isn't it? I mean, you literally can email, fax, scan, uh, Dropbox. There's lots of ways to share data out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've only met with her 2 times, and obviously we've communicated many more than that, but it's all been via email. And so I've only seen her for 2 hours. One, and that was with two different appointments, and that's it. Everything else has been electronic.
Let's see, Jay is asking about the setup fee. You want to kind of, you don't have to tell us exactly, but what kind of fees can you charge, for the setup fee, and what does that include?
Yeah, well, so ABS has worked with Next Gen Health Fusion on getting exclusive rates for utilizing their system. And what's important, it just depends on how many clients the practice has. And so depending on how many clients they have, you want to get the system that is best suited, for the number of patients that they have. But ultimately, I kind of took a look at my time that was involved. I looked at the size of her practice. I also considered the fact that this was my first client. The next
Right.
client I will increase the amount of initial fees, but at the same time, I did not get hurt. And so I just went along and followed the advice that ABS gave me in the training, and it worked.
You just said exactly what we hear from a lot of licensees, Austin. That is their first client, they're a little timid on a setup fee. They'll charge you 500,000, whatever. And then as time goes along, they realize that what they're providing for the doctor is so valuable it's weird because people think they're getting more when they pay more. I bought a Tesla. I paid way more than I should have because it's a car. It gets you from one spot to another spot, right? But doctors are the same way. They tend to think in terms of that's why they buy expensive cars, is because they think, well, the more I pay, it's bound to be a better product. And so I have a whole book on that subject that I provide for licensees who are struggling with that on pricing strategy. And it literally teaches you to up your price and you will get more business and more interest. That's always negotiable, right? Everything
Yeah,
in life is.
yeah,
So if
absolutely.
you said, I've had licensees charge $5,000 for setup fee for one single practice doctor. Now they might be doing more volume than this one that you signed up, but the point is that's a lot of money. But the doctor felt like they were getting more. In fact, I've had licensees tell me they've lost when they went back with their proposal because they were so little on pricing that the doctor thought, well, there must be something wrong. They went with somebody else. So there's a fine line there, but I tell people you can always go down, right? You can't go back up once you've quoted something.
That's right.
Okay. Lynn says, what is your ideal income from this business? Oh, well, you don't have to share the exact numbers, but what are your goals? What would you like to get to, Austin?
Yeah, well, I think at this point, I want to just remain a one-man band, if you will. As I've said, I've left the corporate world, and I don't want to jump into another frying pan, so to speak. So, and I'm not looking to get rich and famous. However, I want a comfortable lifestyle, and so I believe that it's only a matter of time where I can replace my income as an executive at the college, and that I will be able to live a comfortable, have a comfortable salary and a lifestyle that I prefer, which is a little bit more laid back at this point.
Yeah, it's different for everybody. For some people, I've got some licensees that literally they've been with us for 10 or more years and they have a handful of clients is all they have. But it's making them the kind of income that they want for the time that they want to put in. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Tierney Martins out in California. Get this, Austin, don't want to make you feel bad, but she has 87 doctors that she bills for. She's got 12 people that do the billing for her. She's bought her own building. And I asked her, I said, well, do you spend a lot of time in the business? She says, maybe 5 hours a week is all I'm spending right now.
Wow.
That's where you want to get to, Austin. That's your goal. You know, is to have a business that I manage it, but it runs itself because you just find good people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to do something like that.
Well, that's what I tell people. Look, you can make this as big as you want it, and you can keep it as small as you want it too. Maybe that's all you want to do is have a half a dozen, clients. Uh, but some people have a goal, and that's really Tierney's goal, is to sell the business somewhere down the line because this is a cash flow business, right? You get a cash flow of $1 million, which she has more than $1 million a year coming in for those doctors, and you can sell the business for multiples of that to someone else because it's coming in. It's a cash flow business,
Right. It's all
and you
set
can
up.
turn it over to somebody else in a different part of the country. The doctors would never know it, really. You probably want to tell them, but you know, that's the flexibility of this business. Hey, I got lots of other questions here that have come in that I couldn't get to. I've got to run. I'm going to let Eric kind of take over here and wrap it up. Austin, thank you so much for taking time to this. It's been a very encouragement, I'm sure, to everybody on the webinar today.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.